there's being frugal, right? And but then there's also knowing when it is appropriate to actually add some lifestyle creep into your life. And so, this next person wrote, how do you balance lifestyle creep versus actually improving your quality of life? I grew up in a very low income household most of my life. We always had good food on the table, but that was really the extent of our luxuries. After years of sacrificing, I'm finally at a point where I'm earning more than I ever dreamed of. But because I never really had nice things growing up, spending money beyond the necessities just feels like I'm being wasteful, even when I can afford it. I've prided myself in living frugally to get to where I am today, but there are things I want to improve, especially where I live. How do you find the balance? How do I allow myself to upgrade my life without going overboard or letting lifestyle creep take control?
This is so crazy, Nick, because I feel like I could have wrote this question because that was literally me. I grew up in a low income household and, now I make more money and, I have the means to be able to provide more for myself. Like, I don't know. I love this question. I feel like it brings up some emotions because, that's the question I have to ask myself, especially when I started earning like a higher income a few years ago. I think there was some things that creeped in there. I think lifestyle creep is more of like things that don't provide value. Like I think lifestyle creep is just like doing it because you have the money to do so. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, what is actually going on in my life? You know what I mean? My budget, I have no money now and what's happening in my life? I don't know. For me, like I like that I grew up in a household like that where I had to like make the most of what we had and really be appreciative of the things that my mom was able to provide for us. Right. For us now, like, I think, I don't know, again, it all comes back to like what you value, like for us, like, and I think that's another reason why I like going on vacations and going on trips is because we didn't really get to do that as a kid. I've still never been to Disney World till this day. Can you believe it, Nick? Have you ever been to Disney World?
I think I went when I was like 10 or 15. Yeah. I remember like it was either 10 or 15 that we went to Disneyland on the West Coast.
Yes. So like I never got to do things like that. The vacations that we did do, we would drive. I never was on a plane until like late high school when I went with somebody else. But like we would drive to like the ocean and it was like a cheap hotel room that we would share with like multiple family members, So I feel like things that I value now is because I didn't have them growing up. I don't think I'm one of those people. I think there are people out there, maybe I'm just rambling now, but I think that there's people out there who come from a situation like this and they really want like all the clothes, all the accessories, like things like they're holding on to those things now because they didn't have those growing up. But I am just sort of like, I like those sort of like humble like pieces of myself. But I do try to like, now that I do try to allow myself like enjoy a vacation, you know what I mean? Cause not that we had a good life, but like it wasn't, anything super crazy. So I don't know. That was just a bunch of rambling, but just kind of like what I thought of. Cause it really relates to like my life,
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. And that's like what I said earlier about like you either, if you've had to live frugally to get out of a tough financial situation, you either get to the place where you're like, you know what, I didn't have these things. And so now I'm just going to buy them just to have them because I didn't have them growing up. Or you recognize like, you know what, being frugal didn't steal the life that I imagined, right? It just taught me some things that, you know what, I don't need to live with these things. And so you kind of like are at that crossroads once you get out of a bad financial situation. Yeah. But like you said, like, I think it's about identifying what's important and then spending generously on those when you have the means to, and then being flexible with the things that aren't important, that aren't adding value. And like this person said, like, if they're in a really good financial situation, they didn't grow up with a lot of resources, but now they're like, you know what, I just feel wasteful spending money if I don't need to. It's like, I think that's when the power of budgeting really comes in. As lame as that can sound, like budgeting really works both ways, right? Like it does keep your spending in track, but it also does give you the permission to spend money. And like, there's a lot of people who are in situations like this where they grew up without having a lot. Yeah. Now that they do, they feel like guilt for spending that money. And I think that's when like the other side of budgeting can really come in, where you have to include intentional line items in the budget where you're like, you know what, I am going to spend this money, even if it pains me to, even if it feels like a waste of money. Obviously, as long as you're in a good financial situation, to kind of break that mentality of like, you know what, like I don't need it. And so therefore I can't buy it. Where if you're in a good spot, there are things that you don't need, but they do just improve the quality of your life, right? Like having a roof over your your head is the same, whether it's a nice roof or a bad roof, right? But if you're in a good financial situation, you're like, I've never lived somewhere nice, or I don't feel like safe leaving when it's after dark, right? Like, and you're in a good spot, like, cool, maybe spend the money. Like this person said, like spend the money to improve the thing that does matter to you, like the area that you can afford to live in. But then like if buying fancy clothes or random little things doesn't matter to you, like don't waste your money on that. Cause that is, like you had said, that's what would feel more like lifestyle creep, is to buy the unnecessary items that don't bring value to you.
Yeah. And I also think when you're spending, like say now you make more money and you're spending and like your retirement accounts are lacking, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's important for me. It's like, I have a lot of flexibility these days because I'm debt free now, because I went through that 3-year process of being super frugal and getting out of debt. I have the freedom now. So like, I do realize that. And I've tried to change my mindset, because another ramble, but I do think that, you know, coming from a background like low income, like I did, I think my best friend's also this way. Like we have a very similar mindset in that way. Like this person too, like it just feels like you're being wasteful, and you just like, we're just so used to like save. And like, oh, we can't afford that and all this stuff, that we have to like sort of change our mindset a little bit around it, because I don't want to live my life like throwing every single dollar I have at my retirement account so it hits $1 million and I can just be like, woo, you know, and then it's like, what then? You know what I mean? I just wasted a ton of time doing this, but haven't really lived my life. So I don't know. I find the balance by, you know, making sure that my biggest goal, which is my retirement, is well funded and allowing me to hit the goal I want to hit when I want to hit it. But then allowing myself to just like enjoy life a little bit, you know, like I'm not going to go buy a Louis Vuitton bag. That stuff I don't value that, you know, but I think that, you know, allowing myself to spend on some things that I probably wouldn't have in the past. I don't know, it makes me feel good. But I think the biggest thing is just trying to change my mindset a little bit around it, because I think I've heard so many times, like people who even you'll hear like on podcasts that I've listened to, like millionaires who are super frugal. And then they think someday when they hit this net worth goal that like they're going to suddenly switch, you know, and you don't. So I think that I think it's good to like, I don't know, introduce things into your life and maybe try them out. Does it feel good? If not, then maybe don't spend money on it, you know, but I don't know. It is a fine line there. And I think it's also like how you grew up and like your mindset around it.
Yeah, definitely. And like, I'm really glad you brought up like retirement being your biggest goal. And so you prioritize that. And like, that's why I think it's so important that people are like in tune with where they're at financially, because if you're not in a good financial situation and you're overspending, right? Like you're just setting yourself up for failure. But if you can be in tune with where you're at with your finances, and you know, okay, like these are my top 2 or 3 goals that I want to, you know, be able to retire comfortably, afford a home, or whatever it is, right? Like if you're on track with making progress towards those goals, like you feel good about the progress, sure, maybe you could make even faster progress, but it's you know, if you feel like you're happy with the progress that you are making, like don't be afraid to spend what's left over, you know, because then you could end up in the situation like you had mentioned where you get to, you know, 50, 60, 70 years old, and now you hit the number that like, that's what you've been chasing after. But what then, you know, what happens when you get to that number and you realize you spent the last 30, 40 years living so frugally, so to the point where you're like, I'm not going to indulge in experiences, or I'm not going to go the extra mile to make things happen for myself because I just was chasing this number. You know, there's definitely a balance to this. Like, I think that's a huge part, is like, if you are on track, or you are identifying the areas that are going to bring value and you're spending in those, like awesome. But as long as your goals are being met, like you don't need to feel guilty about spending money in those areas. Yeah.
Especially if you like budget it out and you have like extra money left over, like do what you want with it. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know. That's how I sort of look at it too. I do think that there's still some things ingrained deep inside of me where I just like don't want to spend my money on. For example, I think it was like last summer, I had decided like I wanted to start getting my nails done more regularly, like at the salon. So I did it for a few like months, and then I was like, I just didn't like the way my nails were like so unhealthy underneath the gel. So I just decided to like stop doing that, and I just like got a little kit and I'm doing them on my own now. But I mean, it's not like a ton of money, but like at the same time, it is like over a period of time. Like if it's like $60 every 3 weeks that you go, plus the tip, you know, you're looking at like what, like $80, you know, every 3 weeks. So
that adds up quick.
Yeah, it really does. And like, could I afford it? Sure. Like I said, I have quite a bit of flexibility with my money now that I am debt free and, you know, making good money, but that's not an area that I really want to spend on. And I know there's people out there that really love those type of things, like, you know, different spa treatments and nails and stuff like that. I'll do it every once in a while. But, so I think that's the thing too. It's like, you don't have to spend all that. Like some people like think like, should I just like completely upgrade my lifestyle and do this? And it's like, maybe just like treat yourself once in a while. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like that's what I do personally. But yeah, I think that's more of like, I don't think that's a lifestyle creep. I just think like, I just like to be able to be a little flexible with my money now that I'm in a different situation.
Yeah. Definitely. You know, it's funny, like you had mentioned that and I'm like, I feel like if I was on the outside looking at my budget, like it probably does look a little sad, you know, like there's not a whole lot of money being spent on like, you know, if like you're in a good financial situation, you look at my budget and you're like, okay, like you're not spending money on like going out. Like I think our going out budget is like $150 or something, which you can make it last. Right. But it's also like, if you go to a nice restaurant, you might spend all of that in one night out, you know?
Yeah.
But then you look at like, okay, I have like a jujitsu gym membership. That's like $250, which for a gym membership, $250 is pretty expensive, I would say. But to me, like that's something that brings a whole lot of value versus like going out and buying clothes or going out and buying random things. Like to me, I'm like, I'd rather just not, you know, like maybe every once in a while, like, and I know for me, like when it comes to like clothes shopping, like I can go like a whole year without buying any clothes, but then I'll go to like, I'll make my rounds between like Costco, Target and Marshalls. And I'll like, you know what, like I'll spend like $200 or $300 at that one time. And then that's going to last, those clothes I'm going to wear for the next several years, you know? So it's kind of like for me, I don't know, like for me, like I can identify like these are the areas that are important. And so like, I don't feel bad about a $250 gym membership, but I would feel bad if I added like several $100s towards like miscellaneous spending, you know?
Yeah. No, Nick, we're exactly the same because my CrossFit membership is like $200 a month, which is crazy because some people are like, I know when people talk about their gym memberships, they're like, oh, $25 a month. I'm like, oh my gosh.
I wish.
Yeah, 200. But yeah, I mean, you pay for like, you know, the programming, the community, whatever. I love it. So I'm not going to change it. But yeah, those are the things I value. And I feel like we're kind of the same in that sense. Like material stuff doesn't really like get us going, but like we really value like, you know, the fun trips and, you know, our health and things like that. So yeah, totally agree. The information, opinions, and recommendations provided on this podcast are for entertainment purposes only and do not constitute professional financial advice. Any financial decisions you make based on the content of this podcast are your responsibility. We strongly recommend consulting with a licensed financial advisor or other qualified professional before making any significant financial decisions. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that we are not liable for any financial outcomes.